Hello, how are you doing? Welcome to yet another little video. Thanks for coming to my channel, nice to see you. Today I actually, as you can tell from the title, I'm going to show you how to create clickable thumbnails, or at least I'm going to show you how I create my hopefully clickable thumbnails. I mean, you clicked on this one, so we're doing something right here. So I am going to share a couple of tips as I work. I'm going to show you how I do it. I actually use Photoshop, or you can use free software online. I know a lot of people use Canva, and there's like PicMonkey, I think. So I am going to just quickly show you through my thumbnails so you can sort of see the vibe that I go for. But one of the key things I've found really valuable, and I've heard a lot of people talk about, I've been to a few YouTube conventions and I go to panels and stuff where they talk about it. And they always say try and have some sort of consistency to build your brand and make sure your thumbnails stand out, because to be honest, the thumbnail and the title are the two most important elements of a video, because those are the two things that make people click and watch it. You could have the best video in the world with the most amazing production and the most amazing content, but if the thumbnail looks rubbish, people aren't going to click on it and they aren't going to figure out whether it's a great video or not. So what I have been doing is, hopefully you can see that I've got a little bit of a style going on. I always use the same font. I always use a similar layout for each style of video. So you'll notice that my studio vlogs have all got either 3 or 4 images in there. And for my other videos, I sort of either get rid of the background completely or blur the background like I have done for this one. Yeah, you can kind of see the vibe I'm going for. So first tip is to not use too many words in your thumbnail. So this was something I learned at VidCon recently, and it's been great, and also it saves me a lot of time. So as you can see here on the left of my mouse, I have a couple of studio vlogs, and in these thumbnails is a little bit of text sort of relating to the video, but it's not immediately obvious that that's a studio vlog. So what you need to do is make sure it's immediately obvious. So now, as you can see, I've changed it, and my studio vlogs literally just say studio vlog in the middle. I'm a sucker for like overthinking things and just doing too much and making things messy and fussy. So this was a huge, great tip for me. I have sort of experimented out of this tip recently because I've had a couple of videos with like longer bits of text. The person at this convention basically told me to do between 1 and 3 words is ideal. No more than 5 is what you need to aim for. So here I have a little bit too many words, but in order to make sure that words stood out, I made sure that they were big, they're covering half of the thumbnail, and the background is also not distracting at all. So yeah, there's some like basic principles. Like I said, you can use Canva or PicMonkey, whatever you have available, but I'm going to use Adobe Photoshop. So I usually have a canvas ready-made, but if you don't know the dimensions, the ideal dimensions for a thumbnail are 1280 by 720 pixels. I'm going to put it in RGB so it's suitable for a screen, and we're going to click create. So we have our canvas at the ready, and I'm actually going to import a screenshot from the video. So generally 9 times out of 10 I'll remember to pause my video and pose for a thumbnail. Generally I find that means it's going to be sharper and I'm not going to have a really gormless face. There are some vlogs where I forgot to pose and I just have to keep skimming through. So another tip is to make sure you have set poses, or like you've took time to pose. So I could literally just stop recording now and do this, and then we could edit that into the thumbnail. I can just screen grab that and then I've got something ready to go, rather than trying to find a non-gormless face, which is hard, trust me. Are you enjoying this video? If you are, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join my little creative family. So I actually have this one, I'm just going to drag in, and it's just a screenshot from one of my logo redesign videos. So I'm going to show you how I would create this. One tool I really do like and use a lot is either the magnetic lasso tool or the quick selection tool. So they both do the same thing effectively. They select a portion of the image, and what I like to do is just select all of me. I can change the brush size with the squared brackets, and because this image is on a white background, which I took purposely, it means that it's really easy for me to cut out. generally my computer is gonna find, or Photoshop is gonna find, should I say, the exact outline that I need. So we have, if you can see, I'm sure someone's called it before, like crawling ants, where you can see the like black and white little lines going around. So that is the area that is selected. So what I like to do then is just sort of refine the selection, because let me just show you the difference. So I'm just going to copy that with Command C, or you can obviously go into Edit and Copy and paste it, and you'll see that the lines are quite rough, they're quite sharp. If I put any sort of effects on this, it will be quite rigid, and it doesn't flow very well, or I've found it doesn't generally. So what I like to do before I copy and paste it is, let me just go back and undo. I like to go into Select, and this allows me to change the moving ant thing, so I can change the selection. So I'm going to go into Modify, and I'm going to go into Smooth, and I usually, depending on the size of my image, this will just take a little bit of experimentation on your own image. I can put like 7 maybe, and it just smooths those edges a little bit. So if I copy and paste now, hopefully you'll be able to see that we've got more of a smooth edge, there isn't any rough corners, and it just looks a little bit more fluid. So that is my little cheeky tip for that. So once I've copied it and pasted it, I now have a layer that is just me. We have the clear background, and I have a layer that is the original background. So what I like to do is I like to brighten everything up. So I'm going to click on the image of me first, and I'm going to go into Image Adjustments and Levels. And what I usually do is just drag the sliders, so I'll drag the highlights up, so it bumps the highlights up, makes them brighter. I'm going to bump up the midtones to make that brighter, and then also darken it up. So just sort of like upping the contrast of everything just a little bit, so I stand out a bit more. So if I just show you the difference, this is the one I've edited, and this is the one I haven't, so you can see straight away it just makes the image pop a little bit. And I also like to do adjustments and hue and saturation, and I'll just up the saturation a little bit, because if you think when you're editing a thumbnail, what you are going to see is it's going to be probably about that big. So having me bold, and even just doing that, makes such a difference compared to that. It just brings out the features in my face and makes it more clickable. And obviously you can change the adjustments. Then this is something I just do for myself. I actually have softened the edges too much here. You can see that it's sort of overlapped, so I'll fix that in a second. But I like to put a stroke outside of the images. So to do that, I just double clicked on the layer, and it comes up with this layer style panel. And all I'm going to do is click stroke, and that will add an outline around me. So then if I click on the stroke and change the settings, I'm going to put it to white like that, and then I can change the size. So if I drag this slider up and down, I can change how big or small I want that stroke. So I just, again, this differs for every image depending on how high of a resolution it is, but that is sort of what I do for that. Then I tend to add a drop shadow, which sort of brings it away from the background. It makes it stand out a little bit more. So to do that, I'm just going to click the drop shadow box in the layer style panel again. You can see that a drop shadow has appeared, and then you can change the size. I don't want it to be too obvious, but just obvious enough that it adds a little bit of differentiation, wow, big word for me, to the background. So that is the very basics of me cutting out a person. Then is where I would add any additional elements. So what I'm going to do is actually add a background. So this is where the wonderful sponsor of this video comes in. So in Envato, I can get a bunch of different elements to make my work better. In this case, obviously we're going to use it to improve my thumbnail, but you can use it for so many different things. I recently did a video and I showed how you could use it for mock-ups for your graphic design work. There's so many different things. As you can see, they've had 47,000 things added this week alone, and they have millions of creative assets. So if I just kind of scroll across, you'll see they've got stock video, video templates, music, sound effects, graphic templates, graphics, presentation templates, photos, fonts, and add-ons. So I'm going to go into my little library. So I've sort of pinned things that I like. I've either already downloaded them or I will be downloading them in the future. So you can see I've got a couple of Procreate brushes and colour palettes pinned into my collections, and then I have the thumbnail elements here that I'm going to be showing you in a second, and then obviously other things, mock-ups, Instagram templates, Final Cut Pro add-ons, all that jazz. So yeah, Envato elements are a great source for creatives in general, whether you're a graphic designer, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a video editor or an illustrator using Procreate. So what I recommend for thumbnails is using bright colours but nothing too busy so it doesn't distract from the text and the actual information that you want people to take in. So I've picked a couple of different things. I've got some backgrounds. So I've got watercolor backgrounds, which used to be a personal favourite of mine. I've got some lines, sort of cool geometric wavy backgrounds, and then I've also downloaded some textures, some little hand-drawn elements. Sometimes I like to use arrows just to draw people's attention, and then I've also downloaded some fonts because we want to make this seamless. Moving back over into Photoshop, I have the files that I've downloaded here, and I'm actually going to include, I think, one of the line backgrounds. So if I open this folder, you can see that I've got a number of different colours, all cool line pattern. So I think for this one, I'm probably going to go with yellow. There's a few different styles, maybe this one. Just going to drag that over, and because I've downloaded it from Envato, I have licensing on it, so it's copyright free. I have the correct licensing to be able to use it however I want, so I don't have to worry about any copyright strikes or anything like that. So if I wanted to download video footage to make my videos look a bit better, I don't have to worry about any licensing restrictions or getting told off basically for having something that I shouldn't. So we're just going to drag that to the back. Then all I'm going to do is size it up so it fits the area that I want it to. And then usually I'll actually add a little bit of a blur to the background. So I'm just going to go into Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur, and it should preview what it's going to do. And just adding the blur, I find, sort of keeps the elements there, but it means you're not going to look at the background first. You're going to look at me first, and then you're going to read everything else. So going back into the folder, I'm actually going to drag in some doodles. So I've downloaded a couple of different packs. I really love adding in arrows, like I said. This is a great way of sort of focusing people's attention. And I used to trawl on Google trying to find a PNG doodled arrow that looked quirky but wasn't going to take me ages, and I was just too lazy to do it myself, and I didn't have the time to do it myself, frankly. So now I have this whole collection, which, by the way, I'll leave everything that I'm using from Envato Elements linked in the description so you can find them yourself, test them out. Oh, also, I actually have a 70% discount code for you guys. So if you're watching this and Envato looks interesting to you and you want to try it out, you can get 70% off your first month. So you can try out the monthly subscription for less than $10. Now, if you think about it, that is a killer deal because you're getting 50 million plus stock photos, you're getting millions of creative digital assets, and they're all licensed and ready to use, and it's all under one subscription. I mean, I love Envato anyway. You can see I've used it quite a lot. I've got a lot of collections going on, but even more so that it's such an affordable price and you can't really say no, 70% off. So yeah, I'll leave that link in the description. Anyway, back to the job at hand. So I'm just going to drag in this arrow. Let's pretend I am doing in this video a get to know me video. So I'm just going to resize a couple of these arrows, drag them in and point them towards my face. Alright, so I've just quickly put this together. I'd probably spend a little bit longer tweaking it depending on the content of the video, but I'm thinking meet the artist sort of video. This one probably wouldn't even need any words on it, so I'm such a sucker for putting too many words on things, and I nearly did, but I thought that sort of tells the story. It's all about me, that video, and you can kind of tell because all the arrows are pointing at me. So you want to sort of tell a little bit of a story with the thumbnail. What I'm going to do now is actually use some images that I found on Envato Elements, and then you can do it along with me. So like I said, I'll leave a link to these in the description, and we're going to do this beauty one. So let's pretend she's a beauty guru, she's just done her makeup and she wants to make a YouTube video, but she wants to make it clickable. So we're going to create a new file, new, and it's got the custom setting that we used previously. Then all I'm going to do is just drag in the image of this lady. So what I'm going to do for this one again is chop out the background. I'm just going to size it down a little bit whilst I cut it out. So again, I can use either the magnetic lasso tool to sort of go round the edges by hand, or I can use the direct selection tool and just select the parts of her that I want or the parts of the background that I don't want. So I've used the direct selection tool and I've selected just the grey background, and then once I've done that, I'm gonna inverse it. So I'm gonna select her. So if I go and select inverse, it's gonna just select around here. Then I can do the smooth tool that I showed you earlier. So select, modify, smooth, press delete, put it at maybe like 8, and then press delete again. Hang on, it's a smart object. If you get that error, it said that it couldn't delete because it was a smart object. You can see here that little square means it's a smart object. So if I right click and go to rasterize layer, it gets rid of that little square, and it means I can press delete and it'll delete things. Evidently, it's deleted the wrong thing. Let me just switch that back. I've inversed it the wrong way. So you'll see that there's sort of a smooth edge to her hair, and it's not the sharpest, but it looks well when you zoom it out. And because I did feather it, there is a little bit of an outline around here, so I'm just going to use the eraser tool, so Shift E or up here, and I'm just going to get rid of those bits, otherwise it's going to get in the way later on. So it's a makeup tutorial. Let's say it's a natural no makeup look. So I'm going to move her to the side. I want the makeup to be pretty good portion of the image, but I also want to leave space for some text. So this is where the fonts from Envato Elements come in. So I downloaded Miles, Amsterdam and Hunky Dory. So they are now imported into my computer, and we're going to add them in here. So I'm thinking maybe Miles. So rather than like looking at the existing fonts that I have on my laptop and thinking there's nothing, I don't like anything on here, I've gone onto Envato and I found fonts that are clear, blocky and exactly what I want, and they were super easy for me to download and install without any restrictions. So we're going to do natural makeup tutorial. So we're going to do natural on one line, or actual if I miss out the N. Let's just change the size of that so it fits. It's a little bit too big at the minute. So I've got the one word, and once I've got a size that I'm sort of happy with, I'm just going to duplicate. So I'm going to hold Option and duplicate, so natural makeup tutorial, or makeup look, I guess we can see. So there we have the very, very basics. We have the subject of the video and we have a short description of the video. It's only 3 words, and when I zoom out, it's big enough to still read when it's very small on someone's phone. I mean, you could leave it like that. It's very basic. It's not got any colour to it, but it is a natural makeup look. You can do what you want with it. But what I'm going to do is make the use of some more Envato tools. So I think what I'm going to do is use some of the watercolour backgrounds and maybe add some texture and just see where we can go. So you can kind of see how I'm piecing together parts from the Envato Elements website and making them my own, making them into my own creation. But it's saved me so much time because I haven't had to find random elements, or in this case, hand draw my own elements. So let's go into the Watercolor Elements folder, and I'm going to go for something quite simple, so I'm going to use this one, but because we're in Photoshop, obviously we can change the brightness of it and the colours and everything like that. So I've dragged that in. I'm going to size it up so it fills the entire background and then send it to the back. And then this is where using the blur tool and the stroke tool comes in very handy. So if I just click onto the photo, double click, go into stroke like we did earlier, so it's the third one down, and it's remembered the settings from last time, which is actually okay, maybe a couple of pixels bigger. And then I want the drop shadow too, and I'm going to make the drop shadow bigger as well. And you can kind of see it adds a little bit of separation from her and the background. If I just turn the effects off, and then if I turn the effects on, you can sort of see how that has helped her stand out a little bit more. Now, I feel like there's still room for improvement in terms of the photo. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to blur some of this background. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Again, you can play around with different blurs, see which one you like the best. But I like to distract from the background. I don't want the background to be doing all the talking. So if I just adjust that a little bit, it's sort of softened it. It looks a little less harsh. Again, if I turn that effect on and off, you can see that is when it's not on and that's when it is. It just makes you look directly at her rather than anything else. And then we'll go into adjustments and levels. And this is where I play around with the highlights. The highlight of this image is quite good already. Obviously, it's a professional photo. Generally, my thumbnail images aren't going to look like that because they're just screen grabs from this camera. So they're not quite as sharp when I do it. So you can adjust the sliders again. And we're also going to do, of course, the saturation. Image adjustments, hue and saturation, and we're going to bump the saturation up just a tad. We don't want her to look too orange, but we want her to stand out from the background. So again, if I just press OK, so if I zoom out now, hopefully you can see that she stands out a lot more from that background than she did when we first started. So that is a good way of doing it. Then we're going to use this font, and we can play around with the sizing of this. Like I said, having a big font and few words is the way to go. So I am going to just have a play around with this font. I do recommend adding drop shadows or outer glows on it, just again to make it stand out from the background. So what I'm going to do is actually group them all into one group and add an effect on all of them in one go, so I don't have to do it separately. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do a colour overlay, I think, so that will change the colour, and then we're going to do an outer glow. So you can see that it's added a very, very blurry looking effect, but obviously if we adjust the sliders under that section, we can blur it out a little bit. In fact, if I turn the colour overlay off, you can sort of see the effect that outer glow has. It's sort of just added a little bit of differentiation, look at me with the long words, again, to the background. So we have a basic thumbnail. I'm debating leaving it in either black or changing the text to dark blue. I'd probably adjust the spacing on this. A lot of the time I'll save, export and upload a thumbnail to a video before I spot something that I'm not quite happy with. It's not usually until it's actually on YouTube that I decide I want to change something. What could be quite fun actually would be to add in some like doodled makeup brushes. So we could go on to Envato and get that, or maybe like a little scroll on the bottom, something just to add a little bit of excitement to it, I guess. So I guess depending on the nature of your video, you could add in different elements. So we could search for makeup icons, and then it will show us a bunch of different options under different categories. So we've got graphics right at the top, and in here I'll find a bunch of different little elements that I can download or add to a collection and save for later. So this one is quite cool. It's just got some very blocky sort of vector icons, and obviously rather than me drawing all those myself, there's a whole big selection of them there in this folder ready and waiting for me to go. So let's just download that. I'm going to add it to my videos thing because obviously I'm using it to make a video. I'm adding it and downloading it, and then it will instantly pop up at the bottom of my screen and be in my downloads folder ready to go. And you can see all the different files I downloaded. They download as zip files and then you unzip them. And then in the file itself, we've got those icons in so many different formats. I'd probably just use PNG for this. So I could go through and pick different sized PNGs depending on what I want them for. This one's actually super detailed. Each different folder in Envato is made generally by different artists. Like different artists have their own categories, so you can sort of find someone you like the vibe of and then download a bunch of their things. So it could be subtle, it could be quite obvious, but obviously you can make it your own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a colour overlay onto that. I just want it in white. I'm going to add a little bit of a drop shadow, probably not as much as is on the photo. I'm going to flip it around, and then we can obviously rearrange that and add it to wherever on the face we think would look sort of natural. See, I'm doing this now and I'm not 100% sold on the idea, but you get where I'm coming from. You can make it your own. So let's head back to my own thumbnails and I'll just quickly show you what I mean by adding different elements, and then you guys can give it a go, and I'll leave some helpful links for the Envato website too. So as you can see, I actually did the arrow trick on this video, the dairy milk chocolate one. So I downloaded those arrows all from Envato Elements and put them on. And there's also an arrow on this one. It sort of brings attention to what I want people to look at. You can clearly see there's a before and an after, or what they did and how I recreated it. And you'll see, look, down here again, before and after with the little arrow. Adds a few different elements. We've got some dots in the background and like a cool vectorized sort of patterned background. We've got some little accents that I could draw on or just download. There's a lot of different things you can do to make your thumbnails yours and to make them clickable. So when you see one of my thumbnails by itself, standalone, it's strong, like you click on it, it's alright. But when you see them all together on my page, you can sort of get an idea of my style, and without even really reading anything, you can instantly tell that it's one of my videos popping up. I know some of my favourite YouTubers do that. They have a similar style for all of their thumbnails, so it's instantly recognisable and you can build your own brand. So yeah, I guess that's it for this video. I feel like I did ramble on a lot, but basically if you want to up your game, develop your own personal branding, develop your style, I highly recommend Envato Elements. Thank you very much, Envato, for sponsoring this video. Don't forget that I have a 70% off code, so you can try the monthly membership for less than $10 per month. You get all those assets and there's no limit on how many you can download. So it's really a no-brainer. Alright, I'm going to stop talking now. I am getting warmer and warmer in this office. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you soon for the next one. Bye!